I still remember standing outside that car dealership, my heart pounding as I stared at the gleaming white Porsche 911 parked right in front of me. It was mine. I had just signed the paperwork, the salesman shook my hand, and I could barely breathe from excitement. Years of grinding, saving, sleepless nights, and constant self-doubt had finally led me to this moment. But then, out of nowhere, my phone started blowing up. Missed calls, messages, notifications from family members I hadn't heard from in months. The same people who didn't bother showing up to my wedding. Now suddenly, they all wanted to catch up. Tell me if I'm wrong for feeling angry. Was I petty for refusing to let them take a single picture with my car after what they did? Because in that moment, all I could think was, where were you when it actually mattered? Let me rewind a bit, because to understand why I felt the way I did, you need to know the whole story. I grew up in a small town, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone and your last name determined how people treated you. My family wasn't rich. My dad worked as a mechanic, and my mom was a nurse who often worked double shifts just to keep food on the table. I learned early what hard work meant, and how quickly people forget you when you don't have anything to offer them. My cousins, on the other hand, were raised differently. Their parents owned businesses, had big houses, expensive cars, and family gatherings always turned into competitions about who had the latest gadgets or who got into the best university. I was the quiet one, the try hard. They'd joke about how I'd never make it big, that I'd probably end up fixing their cars someday. It stung, but I swallowed it. Fast forward to my 20s, and I decided to take a different path. While they all chased degrees and easy office jobs through family connections, I started my own business. A small auto repair shop. My dad's skills rubbed off on me, and I loved working with cars. But starting from scratch was brutal. I was in debt, barely sleeping, doing all the work myself. There were months I didn't even pay myself, just to keep the lights on. My mom used to call me at night just to make sure I'd eaten something. But slowly, things turned around. Word spread that I was honest, that I didn't overcharge customers. Then I started specializing in performance tuning for sports cars. That's when money started coming in. Real money. Around that time, I met my wife Leela. She wasn't flashy, didn't care about cars or status. She saw me for who I was. Hardworking, ambitious, and, in her words, a little too stubborn for my own good. We dated for a few years, and in 2022, I proposed to her. She said yes without hesitation, and that was one of the happiest moments of my life. We decided to have a small wedding. Nothing fancy, just close family and friends. Or at least, that's what I thought. Here's where things got complicated. When we sent out invitations, my side of the family acted excited. My mom helped with the planning, and even my dad got emotional when he saw me trying on my suit. But as the big day approached, I started noticing something odd. My cousins, the ones who used to make fun of me, started coming up with excuses. One said he had a business meeting. Another said she couldn't get time off from work. A few just didn't respond at all. My aunt told me they'd try their best, but not to expect too much. It hurt, but I brushed it off. I figured people were busy, life happens. Then the wedding day came. I'll never forget standing at the altar, holding Lila's hands, looking around the room and realizing most of my family wasn't there. My side of the aisle was half empty. The people who did show up were mostly friends, co-workers, and my parents. My cousins, every single one of them, skipped it. No texts, no calls, nothing. I tried to stay focused on Leela, on the vows, but deep down, it broke something in me. That night, after the guests left and the adrenaline wore off, I sat alone in our hotel room staring at my phone. Not a single message from them. A week later, I saw their Instagram posts. They had all gone to a beach resort that same weekend. A family vacation. Photos of them laughing, clinking glasses, captions like, "Nothing like family time." I felt sick. They hadn't just skipped my wedding. They had chosen to do something else together, as if my day meant nothing. My mom tried to calm me down, saying maybe it was a coincidence, but I knew better. They just didn't care. I deleted their numbers and told myself I was done. I wasn't going to chase people who clearly didn't value me. For the next couple of years, I poured all my focus into my business. I expanded, hired more staff, and started doing collaborations with luxury car owners. It was surreal. The same kid who used to be laughed at was now tuning Lamborghinis and McLarens. I started making serious money, and eventually, I decided to treat myself. I'd always dreamed of owning a Porsche 911, ever since I was a teenager. It wasn't just a car to me. It was a symbol of everything I'd worked for, everything I'd built with my own hands. So when the opportunity came, I went for it. I walked into that dealership, and the salesman smiled when I said I was buying it outright. No loan, no co-signer, just me. A few days later, I posted a picture on Instagram. Nothing flashy, just me standing next to the car with a simple caption. Hard work pays off. Within minutes, the likes and comments started rolling in. Friends congratulated me, customers commented things like, "You deserve it, boss." But what caught me off guard were the names I saw next. My cousins. The same people who couldn't be bothered to show up to my wedding. Suddenly, they were commenting things like, "Wow bro, so proud of you," and "We should catch up soon." One of them even DM'd me saying, "Hey man, long time no see. We should go for a spin sometime." At first, I ignored it. But then it got weird. My aunt called me out of the blue. "We're so happy for you," she said, her voice all sugary sweet. "Your cousins told us about your success. We're planning a little get-together this weekend. You should come. Bring the Porsche." I almost laughed out loud. They didn't care about me. They cared about the car. Still, part of me was curious. Maybe they wanted to make things right? Against my better judgment, I agreed. When I pulled up to my aunt's house that weekend, it was like stepping into a movie scene. Everyone was outside waiting, phones in hand, pretending to be casual but clearly waiting for me to arrive. The moment they heard the engine, heads turned. People started whispering, and my cousin Ben shouted, "Damn! You really did it? Huh." They surrounded the car like kids at a candy store. Cameras out, selfies being taken. My aunt even asked me to pose next to the car so she could send a picture to her friends. Not once did anyone ask how I'd been. Not once did anyone mention the wedding they skipped. It was like that whole thing had been erased from their memories. I tried to stay polite, but inside I was fuming. They were touching the car, leaning on it for pictures, treating it like some kind of trophy they were entitled to. I stood there smiling through clenched teeth. Finally, my cousin Ben said, "Yo, let's take it for a spin! I'll drive!" I snapped. "No one's driving it but me," I said sharply. He laughed, thinking I was joking. "Come on, bro. Don't be stingy." That word, stingy, it triggered me. "Stingy?" I said. "You guys didn't even bother showing up to my wedding. But now you want to drive my car." The smiles faded instantly. My aunt tried to step in, saying, "Oh honey, that was years ago. Don't hold grudges." That's when I lost it. I told them exactly how I felt. How their absence on the most important day of my life had hurt me. How seeing them post their beach trip while I was saying my vows made me feel worthless. "You didn't want to be part of my life when it mattered," I said. "So don't show up now just because I have something shiny you can brag about." The silence that followed was heavy. No one said a word. My aunt looked embarrassed, my cousins looked uncomfortable. I got in my car, started the engine, and drove off. For days after that, my phone was quiet. No messages, no calls. Then my mom called worried. She said my aunt had been complaining that I humiliated them in front of everyone. I told my mom I wasn't going to apologize. I'd spent years being treated like I didn't belong, like I was the family disappointment. I wasn't going to let them use me now that I'd made it. So that's the situation I was in. Family that ignored me when I needed them, but showed up when I had something they wanted. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Would you have confronted them, or just kept quiet and let them take their pictures? A few weeks later, one of my cousins, Ben again, reached out. He said he wanted to clear the air. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him for coffee. He started off by saying, "Look man, I get why you're upset, but it's not like we did it on purpose." That line almost made me laugh. I asked him, So what was the reason then? You all just happened to be too busy to attend the wedding, but free enough to go on a family trip that weekend. He looked away. It was complicated, he said. Some people didn't want to come because they thought you were showing off. You know. With the fancy venue and all. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The fancy venue he was talking about was a rented barn that cost less than most people's birthdays. I told him that. He shrugged and said, "Yeah, but you know how it is. People talk." That's when it hit me. They hadn't come because they were jealous. Even back then, before the Porsche, before the money, they couldn't stand the idea of me having something they didn't. I told him the truth. You all chose envy over family. And now you're only here because you think you can benefit from me. He didn't deny it. He just said, "Man, it's family. We should move past it." I leaned forward and said, "You can move past it if you want. I'm done pretending." I paid for my coffee and left. That was the last time I saw him. Since then, I've kept my distance. My parents still talk to them occasionally, but I made it clear I'm not part of that circle anymore. I've learned that success doesn't change people. It just exposes who they really are. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about that wedding day. The empty chairs, the awkward smiles, the promises that were never kept. I remember how small I felt back then, like I didn't matter. But now, every time I start that Porsche and hear the engine roar, I'm reminded that I built this life from the ground up. No handouts, no shortcuts. Just hard work and faith. A few months ago, I attended a friend's wedding. One of my closest buddies from the early days of my business. He invited me, and I made sure to show up early, help with decorations, everything. During the reception, his mom came up to me and said, "You have a good heart. Real family shows up when it counts." That line stuck with me. Because that's what it all comes down to. Showing up. It's not about gifts or cars or money. It's about being there when it matters most. So no, I don't regret what I said to my family. I don't regret drawing boundaries. Sometimes you have to let go of people who only clap when you're winning. And if that makes me petty, then fine. I'll wear that label proudly. Because I'd rather have a small circle of real supporters than a crowd of fake ones waiting for their next photo op. If you've ever dealt with something like this, people ignoring you until you succeed, then you know exactly how it feels. It's lonely, but it's also freeing. You stop chasing validation. You stop needing approval. You just live for yourself. So, was I wrong for confronting them? Or was it about time someone called them out for their hypocrisy? Let me know what you think. Like this video if you were on my side. Subscribe for more stories like this, and share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. Thanks for listening to my story, and I'll see you all in the next one.